talk all things foosball. It's our guy Luke Easterling, Athlon Sports. What's going on, brother? How are you?
I'm doing great, Jay. Good to be back, man. Hope you're doing well.
I'm doing well, man. I always love when you join us here on the program. Buccaneers, I just mentioned they brought back Jackson, linebacker. It was a little bit of a surprise. People were wondering if it was going to be him or John Bullock. But, I mean, what does that say to you when the Buccaneers fill their practice squad pretty much with the guys they have? We don't always see that in the NFL. We see teams and they'll cherry pick this guy, and they're like, all right, we got to go get an offensive lineman. Maybe we'll go this guy, and maybe it's a relationship with an agent or a relationship with a guy that they maybe looked at for drafting. But every year we see this Tampa Bay practice squad, and it's pretty much guys that we've seen in training camp, guys that they were undrafted free agents that they brought in for a look. What does that say to you about this Tampa Bay Buccaneers organization?
I think it speaks to what we've really seen over the last 4 to 6 years with the front office and the coaching staff and the scouting department all just being so locked in with what it takes and what it looks like to make this football team. Like from top to bottom, I think there's just such a clearly delineated process, culture, all these buzzwords we use. But this is what it looks like in actuality. Like in practice, this is what it looks like. I was sitting there yesterday kind of frustrated as a fan from a different angle because you saw all these like minor trades over the last 24 hours, right? With like all these guys switching spots, and like me as like the draft nerd, fantasy nerd, like Madden guy, like I'm like, why can't my team get these like random 6th and 7th round picks for nobody? But the reason why is because this team knows the guys they want, they bring in the guys they want, they keep the guys they want. And if anybody else comes nibbling at like, hey, I'll give you a conditional 6th or 7th and we'll swap for this, they're always like, no, we're good. We like our guys. Like we're not going to send one of those picks to someone else for some guy at the bottom of your list. We'll see what happens on the waiver wire. If there's somebody we like, great. But I think like you said, the reason it's so much of like, it's just kind of like down the board, like these are our guys and we keep the ones that don't make the 53 and we don't really make a whole ton of waves. That is the type of behavior that reflects the consistency of a franchise that has won the division 4 years in a row and has had the same. I mean, Todd Bowles has been in the house since 2019, even before he was the head coach. And so Jason Light's been one of the longest tenured general managers in the league now. I mean, most front offices, most organizations don't give any GM or head coach a chance to build the type of continuity we've seen in Tampa Bay. And I think while we might be frustrated that they don't make certain moves, this speaks to the health of the organization, that they're really comfortable with the 90 they had and now the 53 plus that they have heading into week 1.
Just saw some breaking news. Trey Palmer getting picked up by the Saints, so he stays within the division. Not really a surprise there. I mean, this is a guy that they had high hopes for. And Luke, this was a guy I always love to see how people react to outside circumstances, right? Whether it's getting traded or getting signed or anything. And we were looking last year, right? Chris and Mike, that was the top 2 guys. And then when you look at 3, wide receiver 3, it was Jalen McMillan or Trey Palmer. All right, guys, who's going to be able to bring their best to the table? And Jalen McMillan got better as the year went on. And down the stretch, I mean, you're talking about numbers and touchdowns that are only really comparable to Randy Moss, which is never a bad thing to get compared to him. But even Trey not 100% this year. Where do you think it went wrong for him? And were you surprised that they didn't bring him back knowing that Godwin and J-Mac are not going to be ready for the start of the season?
Yeah, I think, and this goes back to my evaluation of him as a prospect coming out of Nebraska, where I was so stoked when the Bucs drafted him. You go back and look at my tweets from back then. I was jacked, man. He was a top 100 guy on my board. They got him in the 6th round. I was super stoked. But it was size, speed, potential, right? It was guys 6'1 plus. He's 4'3 speed. He needs to figure the rest of it out, right? Needs to be more consistent with his hands. Needs to be able to develop a more complex route tree, right? Not just run go balls and quick stuff all day. And we saw the flashes, man. That touchdown against the Eagles. Yeah. He had a couple of moments where it's like, yes, that's the guy. That's what he can do. But the rest of it just never came. The rest of it just never came. He had concentration drops. He had issues, refining his route running ability on those more intricate routes that are just so important to create separation. And so when the rest of it doesn't develop and other guys do, it's kind of like in college, right? If you come in, no matter how much of a recruit you are, if you don't perform, they're going to recruit over you, right? Mm-hmm. They're going to recruit somebody in the next class that's going to take your job. And that's just what kept happening. First it was McMillan and now it's Ibuka, but you just keep getting knocked down. Trey Palmer had his opportunities. He had his opportunities to prove, whether it was injuries or preseason or whatever, hey, I can be a more complete receiver. I can be a full player in this offense. And it just never happened, man. And it's a bummer to me. Hope he gets a great opportunity. Obviously, in New Orleans, I won't be rooting for him super hard. But as his tweets go, I'm sure he's pretty pissed off about the situation. He'll be. I'm sure that had something to do with him going to New Orleans. He wants to show them something and prove something to them. But no, it's a disappointing end to his tenure in Tampa. Again, I was really excited about it. We saw those flashes early on, and he just never became anything more than he was at the beginning, which was a big, really fast guy who couldn't do a whole lot else, and that's not going to get it done with a team that needs you to be more than that.
Were you surprised about the decision to A, bring in Teddy Bridgewater, and B, eventually cut ties with Kyle Trask?
I mean, I was pleasantly surprised with Teddy Bridgewater's arrival. Again, if you want to go back into the depths of my draft history, man, I would have been stoked if you told me at any point Teddy Bridgewater's a Buccaneer, 8 years ago or whatever it was, 10 years ago, I'd have been like, yes, we did it. But no, I think, again, all respect to Kyle and everything that he did, especially at Florida. I thought that last season he had at Florida was an incredible season that doesn't really get enough credit. But as an NFL prospect, man, it's so hard to succeed as a quarterback in the modern NFL if you're a fairly mediocre pocket passer and you can't really do anything else.
Yeah.
If you're going to be an okay pocket passer, you better be really fast and you better be super athletic and you better be really damn good at, creating something out of nothing and getting outside the pocket and making defenses sweat a little bit when you're on the move. Kyle just doesn't move the needle in really any way that matters. And I think he brought, and you can't say he never had a chance. Like, the dude got to sit and learn behind Tom Brady for 3 years. And then he got a chance to compete against Baker Mayfield, couldn't win that job. Comes in this year against a guy who was literally coaching high school football last season. And Teddy was clearly just a cut above, I think, in terms, and that shows experience too. Teddy started a ton of games in the NFL and was a first round pick. And so it just, with Kyle, I thought over the last 4 years, we found out who he is. It's similar to Trey Palmer, right? Where it's just that's just the guy he is. He's an okay pocket passer at best. And in today's NFL, man, if you can't move around a lot, you've got to be so good as a pocket passer. Like, you've got to be an elite pocket passer to survive if you can't bring athleticism and creating, off schedule and those sorts of things. He just can't do those things. And again, I think when the Bucs finally found an opportunity to upgrade the floor of that QB2 spot, I think Teddy's just the perfect guy, a guy who's going to be a fantastic teammate. He's going to be a great, other football mind to have in that quarterback room. He's going to have different experiences, different things to bring to the table that are going to help Baker and the entire offense. And also, heaven forbid, something happens to Baker Mayfield. You've got a guy who started a ton of football games who is going to be able to, I think if the Bucs have to go to Kyle Trask for any stretch of 2025, I think the season's probably lost. I think if you have to start Teddy Bridgewater for 3 or 4 weeks, I think he can hold things together. I don't think it's going to be the prettiest thing in the world, and I think there's definitely a significant drop-off there, but he has played successful football in the NFL. Kyle Trask has not. And again, some of that is opportunity, but he also didn't win jobs when it was his chance to win them. And so I think it's a good move. I think it's a smart move for the Bucs. I think it raises that floor a little bit. Obviously, you hope Baker's healthy for all 17 games, but I think even if Teddy Bridgewater never takes a snap this season, which you kind of hope he doesn't, right? I think he brings value to that room that's going to make everybody else better. And I think it was the sensible thing to kind of give up on that, the last vestiges of that terrible draft class in 2021, and just punt on that, man. Wish Kyle all the best, but I think it's a good move.
What gives you pause about the Buccaneers going into the season? What's the number one thing?
I think a couple things. I think on both sides of the ball, you've got something that concerns me. I think on the offensive side, the offensive line staying healthy, getting healthy and staying healthy, I think is the most important thing. I think the Bucs have proven, even without Mike for a month last year, even without Chris for the entire second half of the season, they can play really good football if the offensive line is intact, and it's right. Giving Baker an opportunity to distribute the ball, no matter who's out there. I think the ground game was just so far improved last year. A lot of that obviously was the offense with Liam Cohen. And again, it'll be similar this year with Josh Grizzard and the rest of that staff staying intact. But it all went through the trenches, man. It all went through the offensive line to give them time to create space for the backs to work. And so I think that is so critical. And with Tristan starting off the season, obviously he's not going to play right away. If anybody in that starting five goes down for a significant amount of time, I just don't know. I don't know if the depth is there to handle that and to make the offense be the same. And on defense, man, they just have to prove that they can get after the quarterback and take the ball away. They just can't. They haven't been able to do that in years, man. I mean, you remember the heyday of this franchise, the original, Super Bowl era, where it was not just Warren and Simeon and those guys getting after the quarterback with regularity. I think the Bucs had some like wild stat where they went like 3 or 4 or 5 or however many seasons with a sack and or a takeaway in a game for like years. They had at least one or the other. That ship has sailed, brother.
Yeah.
Like that, that defense doesn't exist in Tampa right now. And so when you have to put pressure, and again, we always talk about, does it pass rush that creates the coverage or covers? It's the greatest team sport in the world for a reason. You have to do both. The pass rush contributes to coverage contributes to the pass rush. If you can't do both of those things, the other one is going to run out. It's the same way if you have a great offense, but your defense can't hold. Eventually that's not enough. They've all got to work together. And so what I've got to see to believe is this defense on 3rd and 7, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 11, getting to the quarterback and finishing the drive. And on the other end of it, it's when the ball's in the air, it's your ball. Go take the ball. Get a hand on it, tip it up in the air. Somebody else catches it. Stop dropping so many interceptions. Like there's so many opportunities that this team just doesn't convert on as a defense. And so I think that's what's got to separate them this year is they've got to prove that they can get off the field on 3rd down. And that comes from getting after the quarterback and taking the ball away. That Todd Bowles defense, for all it gets so much credit for its exoticism and its aggressiveness. And I still think that's there. It's not going to matter. Got to get after the quarterback, got to take the ball away, or none of that's going to matter. So those two things, if they can't fix those two things, man, I think that's the worst case scenario for this team in 2025.
Where do they slot in the NFC in your hierarchy there, the power rankings in the NFC?
Honestly, man, and again, I try to check my homer card at the door as much as possible. It's literally impossible. I have to be honest about that. I'm too steeped in it, growing up in that area and being such a huge fan. But if I'm genuinely honest, and I said this a couple of years ago, I was one of the few people kind of in the national, and I was biased, so I understand that. But I was saying, hey, the Bucs aren't going to have a drop off here after Brady left. I think they actually might be better this year. And they really haven't missed a beat. And I think that's true. So hopefully that speaks for me a little bit when I say that I think if they're healthy, I think the Bucs are as good as any team in the NFC. I really do. I think if you look at Philly, on paper, they're probably the deepest, strongest roster across the board. But they got their asses kicked by the Bucs last year.
Yeah. It's a bad matchup. We've seen it the last couple of years, right? Other than that one game that was in Tampa where Todd wasn't even taking timeouts. He's just like, let's get the shit over with. But outside of that, right, Luke? This is a bad matchup for Philly. They were almost lucky last year that they didn't run into the Bucs. They may not have made it to the Super Bowl, but that's how it is in football and in any sport, right? Sometimes styles and matchups make fights.
Yeah, I think the Eagles did not lose a game by more than 4 points last year, except for the Bucs who beat them by 3 scores. So that was, that. And again, Detroit, who at the moment, because again, I try to check the homer card when I do my predictions. I'm picking the Lions to go to the Super Bowl because I still believe in their roster. But man, you lost both coordinators. You lost Ben Johnson. You lost Aaron Glenn to head coaching jobs, very deserved. And yes, they kept those staffs together as best as possible, but who knows how that's going to impact things. They're already dealing with injuries again on the defensive line. So again, health is going to play a big role in this, but I just believe so much in the continuity that the Bucs have that if they keep doing what they've been doing and they can just, again, on defense, if they can create more turnovers, create more big plays, if they can have more 3 and outs, if they can sack the quarterback, if they can, that pass rush. Again, these rookies have a shot, man. I love the additions. Obviously, super bummed about David Walker's injury, but if Elijah Roberts can play like he played in this preseason at all as a rotational rusher, again, Not surprised, by the way. Nobody in college football in the FBS had more quarterback pressures over the last 2 seasons than Elijah Roberts, who the Bucs got in the 5th round, by the way. Nobody, not Abdul Carter, nobody. So I loved that pick. But if those corners can get healthy and they can get their hands on the ball, I think that this team, I think nobody wants to play them, I guess is what I'm saying. Like whether you're Detroit or Philly, whether it's on the road, whether it's at home, nobody's going to want to play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I think if they can stay as healthy as their opponents, because everybody's going to get banged up throughout the season, I don't see a clear drop-off between if you like Philly as the best team in the NFC, that's fine. If you like Detroit, that's fine. I think the NFC North is going to be a hell of a division to win this year. I think the NFC West, any of those teams could win it, and I wouldn't be surprised. The East, I think Washington's going to be nipping at Philly there, but I don't really get scared about those other 2 teams. But man, I just don't. Whoever you like best in the NFC, I don't think there's a massive gap or a gap at all between them and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I think if all things are equal and they stay as healthy as their opponents, I think they're as good as any team in the conference right now.
Yeah, I'm down. I'm probably more down on Detroit than a lot of other people because I feel like we saw this story 2 years ago when Philadelphia lost Shane Steichen and they lost Gannon, and they just you need that year to kind of like figure everything out again, and then Philly kind of recalibrated, and they also lost Frank Ragnow, their center, pretty late. So I mean, this is a guy that's been with them for a long time, and you and I speak a lot about building through the trenches and the importance there. All right, last one out of me. What's your Luke going against the grain, which I love what you do, and you don't necessarily just kind of abide by what everybody else is saying. Who's the player, who's the team that you're looking at that everybody could say is going to do good or do bad, and you're just like, nah, I'm coming at it from this direction?
I say this with full understanding that Bucs fans are going to be mad about it, but I think the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to be really good this year.
Really?
I think it's going to make Bucs fans pretty mad, obviously because of Liam Cohen. But I mean, if I take off the Bucs fan goggles for just a second, which is hard to do, and I just look at this football team, if you take the names away, like if you just present this scenario in front of me, you've got a team that I just don't. They finished 5th in the draft order, right? So the fifth worst team in the league. They were not the 5th worst team in the NFL last year. They just weren't in terms of talent. Obviously, they lost Trevor Lawrence for a good bit of the season down the stretch there. But you add Liam Cohen and what he did to the Tampa Bay offense in 1 year last year, and then you go look at the personnel that he's going to be able to work with in Jacksonville, where you've got Trevor Lawrence, you got Brian Thomas Jr. the year he had last year. You add Travis Hunter to the mix on both sides of the ball, which is just crazy. You got a backfield, Travis Etienne, Tank Bigsby. They add Bashal Tutin from Virginia Tech, who I really like. LaQuint Allen from Syracuse, who I really like as a late-round guy. So that backfield is stacked. Brenton Strange, tight end out of Penn State. He was a second-rounder a couple years ago. I think is going to have a big year, breakout season. But the defense, man, I mean, 2 of the best pass rushers in the league. You got Trayvon Walker and Josh Hines-Allen on either side. That's a great foundation to start with on defense. But you got 2 of the better linebackers in the league. You got playmakers in the secondary. Again, I'm excited to see how they involve Travis Hunter there. They were not as bad as they finished last year, and I think Liam Cohen's transformation, if he can do anything close to what he did in Tampa Bay with that offense this year, I think the talent is there, and I think in a very winnable division. I think Houston obviously is everybody's pick pretty much to win that division. But they had one of the league's worst offensive lines last year and then traded away Laramie Tunsil on purpose. Like, you traded away your franchise left tackle after having a really bad offensive line. I'm really not sure what the plan was there. So I'm skeptical that they're going to be able to be as dominant in that division as a lot of people expect. And I don't know, man. I think that offense is going to be fun to watch. And I think the defense was better than it got credit for last year. And I think as much, again, as it's going to pain Bucs fans to watch Liam Cohen succeed after the way that whole thing went down this offseason, I just look at the Jaguars and I think that that's a team. If you're expecting them to finish bottom 5, bottom 10 in the NFL, I think you're going to be mistaken.
At Luke Easterling on social media, Luke Easterling, Athlon Sports, always making our show a whole heck of a lot better. I'll be keeping a close eye on the Jacksonville Jaguars now because you brought them up. Luke, you are the man. I appreciate you, my friend. We'll talk to you again soon.
I always love it, man. Take care.
You got it. The man.